Welcome to In the Light. I'm Anna Isabel. I'm an analytical hypnotherapist as well as an astrologer. And today I have with me Pamela Pollington, who is a spiritualist medium. Welcome, Pamela.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for inviting me.
Last week I interviewed Darylyn Gunsberg on the subject of grief and bereavement. And I had lined somebody else up for today's interview, but as it's transpired, it was not meant to be. And instead, I have the perfect follow-on from last week's interview, which is you, a medium. I think it fits in nicely because, well, for obvious reasons, it's a very healing thing that you do. So would you like to tell us a little bit about how you work?
My main job as a medium is to prove with evidence of survival of death. So that can either be proof of when they were living, memories, relationship, objects, or it can also be giving proof of what's going on in their life right now, so that the spirit world prove to the recipient, the person receiving the message, that their loved ones are still around them and still very much interested in their daily lives.
And that is extremely valuable, because what we were discussing last week is the pain of the severing of a relationship, and how important it is that the person is given, to a certain extent, permission to continue the relationship, because there's so much pressure in our society to just forget the pain and move on.
Yes, and I'm a firm believer that there is a continuous existence of the human soul, that when we're here, this is the physical life, but when we go to the spirit world, that we continue, but in the spiritual soul and the spirit that survives this physical death.
What led you on this journey of mediumship?
What led me was the passing of my daughter to the spirit world. It happened very suddenly, and I was in that turmoil of grief, and my sister had gone to her friends of hers, and a medium showed up and said that she needed to see me, and I agreed to see the medium. And she come to my home, and she gave me such evidence, and I was left without any doubt that there was this life must continue. How would she know these things? And some of the things that even I didn't know that I could go away and check was, I think, the fact that you can go away and check something without even knowing it, because some people feel maybe we read people, or maybe we tap into their energy and get the information. But when you can actually go away and prove something that I didn't know, it kind of brought it home that, again, what she said to me was the person that she would have been with, a guy called David. She said how he passed. She also mentioned my daughter's personality. But one thing that really emphasized that there is some truth in this was about the fact that she mentioned my daughter having this picture of her and her son in a blue frame. And I would go to the home and find this picture in a blue frame, which I didn't know about. And she said she wants you to put it on the hook on the wall. Again, she wouldn't have known there was a spare hook on the wall. So obviously the very next day, I went and I searched for all my daughter's paperwork, and behind everything, there was this blue framed picture tucked behind all her paperwork, which I had no memory or recollection that this ever existed. But it kind of ignited a spark within me, because when all the turmoil that was going on around with the passing, this medium, she brought so much comfort and love. And it was at that point that I knew that I wanted to give back, and I knew that I wanted to be able to bring forward the two worlds again.
So you're prompted by the loss of your daughter and the pain of the loss of your daughter, and then this magical discovery of a medium who gives you evidence that your daughter still has a connection with you and is very much alive and aware of what's happening. What did you do next?
Yeah, what did I do next? Again, that wasn't the only way that my daughter showed me that she was around for a medium. There was things that was happening within my home. There was smells happening. I knew she was around me. I remember hearing her voice a few times, like just that feeling of her being there. And even on the evening of her, before her funeral, I know that she visited me in a dream. It was just such an amazing feeling that I just felt she was giving me that encouragement to go to the funeral, because at that stage I was in quite deep grief that I thought I couldn't cope with it. But she came to me in a dream and she just showed herself in beautiful colors, surrounded by the most beautiful rainbow. And it actually, her coming to me the night before her funeral, it gave me that encouragement to be able to go through with the funeral. So I know with the signs that she's given me and the smiles that she brings, it kind of prompted me, because her sister started seeing spirit. She saw her sister after she passed. She appeared to her like it was real, I would say. And I went to a spiritualist church to kind of find out what it is that my daughter was experiencing, kind of wanting to know about these smells. And I remember the spiritualist church I went to was Hampton Hill Spiritualist Church. And I was in quite a state at that time. And I remember them keeping the church open and giving me spiritual healing, not understanding any of it, not even understanding spiritualism as a religion. But I then started sitting in a development circle to try and work out what my daughter was experiencing. We both sat in the circle together. My daughter, Danielle, and myself started sitting in development circles to try and understand what we were going through at this time as well. And I feel at that stage, when I could make a connection to the spirit world and give somebody a message, it was just like, wow. However, I used to go week after week not wanting a message, because I wasn't ready for my daughter to come in on open platform. But I just used to love listening to other people receiving messages from their loved one and their reactions. And it kind of showed me that there was more to life. And there was definitely something in this, definitely something real about the whole life after death. And it proved to me that my first, I was probably a bit like a sponge, and I started really wanting to explore my development further. And I started attending weeks at the Arthur Finlay College and really wanting to understand everything about mediumship and wanting to do it properly, but having that connection that I also felt that the time I spent on my development was the time I spent with my daughter in the spirit world.
So you had actual experiences, which then were the things that drove you to want to learn more, because you wanted to understand them. That's very beautiful, isn't it? It's like she was absolutely determined.
Yeah.
You and her sister were going to be able to stay in touch with her.
Yes, unfortunately, my daughter, the daughter I went to the development circles with, she actually was seeing spirit objectively, and it kind of frightened her in a way that she stopped developing her spiritual gifts. But I know she will do one day. She's very spiritual and very connected herself. But it kind of, because she was only, I think she was 21 at the time, that it was something actually that she didn't really want to explore anymore. But I continued going, and I continued developing my my mediumship.
So what would you say to people who are actually afraid?
I would say basically that there is nothing to be afraid of, that like attracts like. And if you're doing things in love and for the right motives and the right reasons, that's what you will attract back. So again, there's nothing to fear from the spirit world. I've never had anything that's fearful for myself. As long as you're doing it with the right heart and the right intention, that everything's done in love. That's my experience.
There are people who worry that there's something unnatural about, as they would put it, contacting the dead. What would you say to that?
I totally agree with you. And I do feel that especially if people have gone or been part of different religions, that they have been inbred that there's something to fear. And again, it's something that they've been told is going to happen if you do this, if you do that. I was involved in a religion previous for 12 years that was very anti what I do. However, it's because they don't fully understand. They don't understand. If we are spirit, if we come from the spirit world, we're spirit here and now, having a human existence, and then we go back to the spirit world, it is the most natural thing. And I do believe that everybody to a certain degree can develop their ability to connect with the spirit world, but it is getting that fear factor out of the way, that everything done with the right intent is done in love. And I've never experienced anything bad, or but I do feel that some people put the fear factor in people, and that's why they have to have the understanding and know that it's done with love and good intentions. It's obviously not everybody out there does it in that way, but it's my experience. I can only talk from my own self.
Yes. Well, I think the next obvious question is, if people would like to begin to develop, what steps would you recommend they take?
To begin with, I do feel that it would be more like an open awareness circle, opening up that psychic ability and being open to wanting to develop. I always say it's never a race, your spiritual development. We're all on different pathways. We're all develop at different times, and some people develop very quickly. For me, mediumship came in very quickly. For others, it may take years. But again, it's having that willing heart to want to do it, and the right motivations. Doing it for the wrong motivations, for fame or fortune or writing a book, all those things, it's kind of, that to me is not right for me. I want to develop it to become, to bring healing to people, to bring that comfort and that healing. So I do feel if people want to develop their mediumship and they want to develop their own spirituality, you have to also work on yourself a lot to become a medium. It's not just all about developing mediumship, it's also developing self as a person. And developing yourself spiritually is important too. And it kind of runs alongside with your mediumship and having that right heart motivation. But definitely people that want to develop would be to sit in an open awareness circle, to develop their awareness to life. And I do feel we all have that awareness. We all have that gut feeling when you walk into a room and you may feel there's tension in the room, or that is your gut instinct coming in and kicking in. So I'm sure so many people already have that openness to their psychic ability, because again, you have to develop your psychic ability to become a medium. Now, not all psychics are mediums, but all mediums have to be psychic. They have to have that energy to work with another spirit. And the thing is that even if you develop your psychic ability, you're still working with the spirit, because you're just working with the spirit that's still living. So, and then the mediums work with the spirit that's passed on to the spirit world. So again, it's, you have to develop your psychic and then develop your mediumship. So open awareness circles, and then once you can make that connection to the spirit world, it would be then to start sitting in mediumship circles and developing your connection.
One of the, I guess, easier ways of making connections is to be open to little signs and omens as well. Could you say anything about that?
Yeah, I definitely feel we have to have that openness to signs. I do feel that a lot of it is down to your trust. You have to learn to trust the spirit world. You have to learn to trust what you're getting. Many a times the spirit will give us signs and we overlook these signs. I know when I'm working, or if I've got a reading coming up, that the spirit world will give me signs or things to look out for before the person's actually sitting in front of me. Just a little story about a lady that came for a reading, and she'd lost a child to the spirit world. And the first thing this child made me do was put on a top which had a star on it. And I thought, that's odd. I wouldn't normally wear that to a reading. So I went for a walk with my dog, and along the pathway, I found a string of stars. And I thought, this is odd. I've got the star top and I've got the string of stars that I found just on the floor. And I said to the spirit world, if this is a sign that I need to give this lady for her reading, please just give me another sign. So of a star. So I'm walking along a bit further, and I do this route every day. And the spirit world made me look up and see this really big gold star in somebody's window. And I thought, yes, spirit, this is a sign for this lady today. And when she came for a reading, she lost a baby to the spirit world. And again, he gave me his name before she arrived. So again, I know I don't just cold read people. He gave me his name before she arrived. And I went to the star and I said, well, there must be a star named after him. And she said, yes, there is. But I knew there was more to this star than just the star being named after this little boy. And later on in the reading, he started talking about his sister that had been born since he had passed. And I said, and I want to go back to the star with his sister. I said, it's important to say about the star. And she then turned around and said, that's her middle name. So again, if I'd neglected seeing those signs or not taken notice of the spirit world, I might have missed out on a very important part of this reading. So we should look for signs and symbols, and the spirit world, there's more intelligence in the spirit world than we actually give it credit for. There is incredible intelligence, and that's actually trusting what the spirit world are trying to give us, because they work a lot harder than we actually realize.
That is such a beautiful story and a perfect illustration of exactly what I was thinking about. Those little things that happen, which we could so easily dismiss, but which, if we keep our eyes open, are very important messages.
It's lovely, really, to feel that little boy didn't touch the earth. He passed when as a stillborn, say, but he just wanted his mummy to know that he was okay, and that he knew about the sister that had been born. I mean, the intelligence was absolutely outstanding. And if I hadn't have learned to trust that, I might not have been able to give her what she needed. She'd waited 4 years to hear from her little boy that he was okay.
Much of what is best in life is an exercise in faith and trust.
Definitely.
And on that note, I want to say thank you so much, Pamela, for joining us and giving us an insight into your world, and also into the promise that is there for all of us.
Yeah, and it is, and it's eternal progress, and is open to everybody, so we can all progress on this journey, on our spiritual journey of progression. Of spiritually, we can all progress and move forward, and to know that there is a spirit world, to know that there's life after death, to know that we will see our loved ones again, is it's a wonderful provision, I feel.
It is, and I think it's a tremendously liberating and healing message as well. Thank you again, Pamela.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on In the Light today. Next week, we're going to be looking at somebody else discovering her life's purpose. Rebecca Smith will be talking about her book, Born to Do It. Until then, goodbye.